We have been backing Arsenal since day X or day dot on this channel, or day one, or whatever you want to call it. I think at times there have been wobbles amongst this Arsenal fan base as to whether Arteta really is the man to take Arsenal forward. And even on, the All or Nothing last year on the Amazon platform, you could see there were people who were beginning to question things fairly early on and wondering whether what was going on at Arsenal was going to have the end result. But some people said, trust the process, stick with it. What is going on here is positive. He will get them playing better football. He's laying down foundations, and results like 3-1 at home to Spurs are part of the reason why people kept the faith. People wanted to continue with what Arteta was doing. There are so many different positives to take from today's game. Difficult to know where, but we are going to break the whole game down. If you haven't already hit subscribe, hit that button and let me know what you think about Arsenal and their performance, or Spurs and their performance, in the comments below. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, we saw Conte take on Thomas Tuchel and draw 2-2 in a slightly more fraught, sort of closely fought game between Spurs and Chelsea. And granted, maybe Chelsea was struggling a little bit more than maybe Spurs or Arsenal are at this point, but it showed that Conte is capable of challenging any manager to such a high degree and breaking down their style of play that you would have expected that when he then goes to play Arsenal, he would have picked on the weak areas that Arsenal have. And early on, you could see they were trying to counter-attack, and Arsenal were in the supremacy, not only in terms of possession, but also in terms of the opportunities they were creating, how they were running at the back line, the differences that were being made between the two sides, and the kind of you're looking for the benefits and the sort of slight edge that Arsenal were getting there, and they were getting it early on, and you could see that. They were moving Spurs all over the place. Conte was on the sidelines, sort of looking stressed in the first place. And it was quite clear that Arsenal had come here to achieve a very simple and open mission, which was to impose their new kind of will, their new kind of want on the game that they didn't have, or maybe they hadn't slightly developed in previous seasons. What I mean by that is Arsenal have got a very specific identity now, which is we play Arteta ball, which is a variant of, and very much in many ways improves on what Man City do a lot of the time in terms of the possession and moving the ball around. They're almost a bit more incisive. He's got these instruments that he knows how to use in Zinchenko, in Gabriel Jesus, in Xhaka, even in Partey, but even in the likes of Saka and Martinelli and Odegaard, who's just this metronome in the middle, just letting these little balls go through. He's just amazing to watch. And the interchange and the interplay between them was so impressive today. Again, I'm sort of skipping all over the place, but I feel like it is, the reason I'm doing so is it feels like it is so all-encompassing, this performance, so impressive, so the fruits of the labour that has gone in at Arsenal over the last few years, that you sort of go, well, it wasn't just one specific thing. You could see that there was confidence in this side, but you could also see there was confidence in the system. There was confidence in what they were trying to achieve. Saka knew exactly what he needed to do. Martinelli knew exactly what he needed to do. The way they were running at the back line in different ways, in different kind. They were looking for different end goals as well. Martinelli was going beyond and then going back. Saka was going inside and then going towards goal. And that led openly to Thomas Partey's opening goal. I mean, it was side-footed, stroked into the top of the net. He didn't have to put his foot even through it. He just caught it so perfectly. And it was almost like a sand wedge going through a ball and perfectly off. Maybe a pitching wedge. But either way, it went perfectly top corner away from Hugo Lloris. And you could see how happy the Arsenal players were, and the way that Xhaka gathered the group together afterwards. There was this message, don't let this slip away now. Now, maybe that wasn't the exact English that he used, but the point was, let's impose what we're actually trying to do here. We've got a new identity that we want people to remember. We can't just let that slip by. We've created opportunities. We've created something here that we need to hang on to, that we need to begin to become. Because, and we will talk even more about this in a little while, actually, which I do find quite interesting, but Arsenal's actions and what Arsenal did today was so controlled, was so dedicated, was so focused on what they were trying to achieve, as opposed to what Spurs were trying to do. They didn't get sucked into any of those games that maybe Conte would want you to get sucked into. They didn't get sucked into some of those traps that maybe you would see someone like Harry Kane when he ended up kicking, was it Gabriel while he was on the floor? That's the kind of thing where in previous years you could have seen Arsenal's heads maybe drop, even when a red card is sustained, and they sort of go, okay, well, maybe the team will sort of grit their teeth together and come back now. We're worried we might look vulnerable. there was no vulnerability today to Arsenal. Even when they conceded a penalty, you could see it wasn't vulnerability, it was frustration in the team there. They were annoyed that they had dominated this game so much, and yet they had let Spurs back into it. 1-1, great finish. And frankly, that was also down to the great counter-attacking of Harry Kane and Son. Their lovely interchange, and there were times where I think Arsenal were frustrated they were missing the ball, but it was just really good, swift counter-attacks that were very effective. And that's exactly what Conte was trying to achieve. You can't say that Arsenal need to get rid of all of them, but what they were trying to do was do the right thing. Push them out wide so they couldn't come back in, and when they did get into central areas, block them off. And it was a silly tackle in the end that really gave away that penalty. But the point with that is, that was a lapse. That was the only real lapse that you saw today. The other lapses on Arsenal's behalf were probably moments when they didn't quite get the ball forward in the right way. They were controlling the ball so well. And again, we'll get back to it, but Spurs didn't look like that. And I get it, like there will be some people who are probably going to say the opposite. They'll go, well, Arsenal got the win, but it's Spurs, isn't it? Or Arsenal got the win, but Spurs didn't quite look at it. Or, Conte didn't quite play the correct tactics. I don't think he did play the correct tactics today, but he didn't quite play the correct tactics. He didn't quite play the way that he would want to today. And that was X, Y, Z. Or not as many players went away on international duty for Arsenal, so he got more time with them, whereas Conte had to lose all the quality players in Son and Richarlison and Kane and whoever else. These are all excuses. It wasn't only a bespoke plan today that Arsenal played, and you could see where they were targeting the weak points within the Spurs side, but you could also see that broadly this was the confidence of Arsenal overall being effective in this team. You could see how Arteta was so happy when the goals went in that it wasn't just a hey, it's a goal, but it's a goal at the Emirates in the way that we wanted to play. And that's one thing that I've really, in every Arsenal fan, has been so at pains to let everyone know over the last few weeks. The Emirates now, the tone is so different. What is going on there is so satisfying for everyone. There is a new unity that they felt had gone from the crowd. There is a new sense of belief that a lot of these guys will be operating under at the Emirates and sort of going, the fans believe in this. Like, the fans actually believe in this system. There is something here that we can tangibly say, hey, we can invest in this. Going into tomorrow, Arsenal are 4 points clear at the top of the table. And they would have been, would they have been maybe 1 point behind, or maybe 2 points behind, if Spurs had won? So that's how close this is. Because Arsenal aren't the only team that have improved this year, and Arsenal aren't running away with it. It's not like everyone else has been terrible in the Premier League. It's just that Arsenal have really been exceptional. And apart from the lapses they had against Manchester United, which they seem to have learned from in this game, very hard to pick holes in them. And the Manchester United game, I think they probably did learn from in that. You see them going to Old Trafford. You see the point in the game where there was that, you just could have tipped it over the edge and they could have won that. They went the other way. Now, I get it. Maybe that means that is still within the team and there are still games where they will want to be more imposing or they'll want to control it in different ways. But if you're at the Emirates, if you are in the ascendancy, which they definitely were against Spurs, strike, make that count. And now we got onto that red card. For me, I don't think it was a red card, but I think what he did do was open up the possibility of the referee interpreting those actions as a red card because it was aggressive, it was high, it was reckless, and therefore he left himself open to it. It was naive play. It was in a place where he didn't need to worry about that. They were 2-1 down, so already they were in a deficit position, and they don't need to play like that. So it's silly. Martinelli also did the perfect thing if you're Arsenal. He did the professional, should we say, thing, stayed down, the referee gave the red, and got back up and then ran at them. He made them suffer for it. And that's exactly what happened. As Conte was looking to make his changes, as he was looking to bring someone else on because you could tell he was worried, it might have been Martinelli, in cuts Martinelli, ball across, gets laid off to Xhaka from either Gabriel or Saka, I can't remember who, because I was watching live. And Xhaka just turns, plants it so perfectly, game dead. Previous years, you don't see that from Arsenal necessarily. You see their heads go down sometimes, or hey, they're down to 10 men, but let's see what happens here. We're still pretty equal. They made it count. They got the right guy sent off, and they capitalised on that space on the pitch, made the difference in those couple of minutes where Conte was making the difference. That is a killer instinct from this Arsenal team. That is a professionalism and a kind of game management that you haven't seen in previous years in this Arsenal team. They're a new breed, a new animal. New beast, same animal? Yeah, new beast, same animal. Because, and I can't say this enough at this point, They made changes at the end as well. They brought in someone like Nketiah, and you could see he was getting at the back line. Conte made 4 changes after that. That could have changed the game. It could have meant that Spurs tried to get back into it, but they didn't really. Arsenal still kept attacking, still kept going forward, still kept making the better of the chances, still pinned Spurs back to such a degree that Harry Kane was sort of forced to feed off scraps. They took some of the bigger boys off at one point as well. So the frustration from Conte was palpable. And now we also have to question what was going on for Conte today. Why didn't they go out there and do something that was more tangible? Why didn't they go out there and get in Arsenal's faces? Why didn't they do the things that you would have expected and needed to be done if Arsenal are to be got at? These are all kind of nebulous questions. I'm not quite sure how to answer them because Conte normally does that. That's what he did against Tuchel. It's what he does against all the top sides. It's what he will try to do against Liverpool. He'll try to go toe to toe with them. He'll try to go punch for punch. He'll want to suck them into that. They could have made the atmosphere around the Emirates sort of, oh, maybe we're not as good as we were or as we thought we were or as any of these things. But no. So why didn't they do that? Is it because the team know that Conte is so specialised, is so exacting in the way he wants to do things that they know, well, we didn't have long to prepare for this game, so we are already at a deficit? These are the kind of things. His absolutism within the side is not only a great strength because it gets the best out of players, but it can also be a weakness. You can see when they don't have the time to prepare, when they haven't had the time in the training field with Conte, when they haven't had those moments to be able to go through what it is that Conte wants them to execute, they become vulnerable to what the opposition are going to do. And that is what Arsenal capitalised on. And again, it's just so satisfying to see what Arsenal and Arteta are doing here. Arteta looks so pleased with himself. Arteta looks so pleased with the shape, so pleased with the outcome, so pleased with the end result, because all of those were his hard work, his labour, all the things that he needed and wanted to do in this time came to fruition. There were so many great individual performances. Don't actually think Spurs were all that dangerous, but I think what Arsenal did do was shut them down very well. They actually won the midfield supremacy battle with Xhaka and Partey. Xhaka went away, had a great international break, and I saw a really good breakdown of his play, how he plays a little bit further forward for Switzerland, how he becomes a bit more of a provider, how he's looking for more goals. He got a goal that he deserved today. How he's looking for more assists. He was looking for that again today. And how someone like Thomas Partey is the perfect foil for him because he sits back, he's a bit more of a destroyer, he's much happy to give the ball back to him. Either of them can also be interchangeable, so one can go forward, one can sit. Remember a few years ago, it was Xhaka who had to win the Arsenal fans back over. Arteta has been key to helping him with that. I think under other managers, you'd have gone, it's easier just to get rid of you, to be honest, mate. We're not really sure that you want to be here, and we're not sure that you're wanted here by the fans. But Arteta had a belief. Arteta had an understanding of the player, the nuance, the emotion, the ideas. And as much as people make fun of his drawings and the hearts and the brains and all these things, those things are so key when talking to players, especially if you're speaking in English. You need to have something. I mean, obviously, Xhaka's grasp of the language is amazing. But the point is, when you're speaking to so many different people from so many different areas, you need things that are going to be immediately evident to them. And so these relationships with people like Saka after his unfortunate incidents in the international tournament, Xhaka, where he clearly was persona non grata at the club, the way that he managed the out of someone like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but also how then players like Zinchenko, how players like Gabriel Jesus want to come and play for him, not just for Arsenal, but for Arteta. You see why these personal and also but also macro group relationships between everyone, which are Xhaka's great relationship with Arteta has led to a good group dynamic. You saw him gathering them. You saw that everyone was arms around each other together. These things, it's not all about short-termism. This was a long-term plan from Arteta to build something to this point. It wasn't just, well, we need to make it work immediately, and if we don't make it work, then, well, off he goes. But people were going to judge him on 1 season, 2 season, 3, and the spending they had, all these things. Well, guess what? They're top of the table now, and there is fruit from the tree, from the seed that he planted ages ago. I think there is actually isn't it, at the Arsenal training ground, tell me if I'm right or wrong, Arsenal fans, is there not a tree up on the wall? Does that not signify the seeds that were put down years ago? There's a Wenger quote up on the wall. They've lent into all these good things that have been good about the modern Arsenal era, and they're paying off. And arguably what is interesting about the Spurs modern era, obviously, is the Levy era at least. There has been money spent, but they've never quite had a Spurs identity yet, have they? But what Arsenal identify as, in the modern era at least, he's trying to reignite that. Spurs have lent wholly into Conte, and I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but there's not the club ethics there. Over the international break, there is this worry of, will Conte go back to Juve? Don't hear any of that sort of stuff from Arsenal. So it's maybe a signal of where the two clubs are at. Spurs are definitely on the up. Spurs are definitely getting better, and they will continue to do so under Conte. But there are little vulnerabilities, little cracks about the absolutism that comes with that. And also the short space time that very often you get with Conte. The opposite has been truer for Arteta. And a few people are being vindicated at Arsenal now for sticking with him and for making this team some impressive and satisfying stuff. That was a really unconvincing hand, but I am convinced. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about the match today. I actually thought the referee was pretty solid, if I'm honest, but I also thought he let Spurs get away with quite a lot, and also Spurs went down quite a bit, really quite sort of passively, didn't really impose himself in the game, didn't really seem to understand there was more of a North London derby dynamic. I actually think Arsenal, if he'd let a few of those go, would have a few more goals, and it could have been close to 4-5-1 today. Spurs lucky, I think, in many ways, to get away with 3-1 in the end, because their heads, they went after that red card. They stopped believing. Arsenal went the opposite way. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll see you guys later on this channel. Haven't already hit subscribe, hit it. If you enjoy the analysis, great. Let me know what you'd love to see more of, and let me know what you'd like to hear more of on the channel as well, because I'm always open to feedback. We can only get better as a team. See you guys in a little while. Much love. Bye. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.